Right, how do we do this?
First guest of season 2. Welcome to two Chassids in a pod. We have with us today Dovi Halpern, Hashem, aka Jewish Metal on Instagram. And we're very excited to have you, man.
Thanks for having me. I've heard great things about you guys, so very excited to be here. And,
That's probably not us. You didn't bring your guitar?
Oh, well, I actually am a keyboard player, but I have it set up over there. Yeah.
And you, Dove, you play in a band where you have your
I've
own
never,
team?
so fun fact, I have never played in a band. I am not a live musician. When I taught myself how to play keyboard when I first went to Yeshiva after high school. And the goal was, I wasn't sure Yeshiva was for me. So if I don't become religious out of this thing, at least I'll learn how to play keyboard while I'm here. And so that was kind of like my backup plan. A little bit of both, charted my way in both directions a little bit. And I was just, coming out of high school, I was listening to a lot of mostly European and Scandinavian, melodic metal, which frankly is melodic death metal, as scary or intense as that might sound, is actually is very different in my opinion than the reputation that metal has of just being noise and screaming. It's actually a lot in a lot of cases very based on classical music with beautiful melodies and all sorts of orchestral instrumentation mixed in, and it can actually be, in my opinion, very cool music. So that's this kind of stuff I was listening to coming out of high school and when I started playing keyboard. So frankly, I was not teaching myself out of a piano book chords. I was just trying to learn by ear things mostly that sounded like da 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 da. So I play keyboard like most people play guitar. And
do you make guitar tunes with it, you're saying also?
Yeah, well, so I record it on my computer and I can toggle through, and I use very basic software. I'm just using GarageBand. You can toggle through different instrument sounds, guitar, whatever it is, piano, synth, all sorts of things.
And so do you make a whole song like that? Do you add things?
Exactly. So that's how I'll make my music, is I will kind of record all the different parts, arrange it together with the different instrumentations in GarageBand. And the reason that you've probably heard of me today, anyone's heard of me, is I just had the wacky idea that if I'm going to do this, I'm going to go all out. So I went and I found a vocalist online who really just had a world-class sound. And then I also found a producer through him who re-records all of my rough track. He'll re-record in his own studio. To really give it it's kind of A+ sound. So I don't want to say I'm a fake musician, but
you just figured out the system.
I'm not going to be the guy who shows up at your Humsits and I just that's not me. But I can, in my studio, I can put together something that sounds pretty sweet.
It's amazing. It's
really
a
cool.
Self-taught musician. That's really cool.
Right.
So when we go back in the story, where is Dovi Halpern from? How you grow up? For sure. On the Jewish side of things.
Yeah. So I'm born and raised in Atlanta, Georgia. My parents are both Baalei Teshuva. So I grew up in the Orthodox community here in Atlanta, which honestly was and is a pretty open-minded from community, very out of town, very eclectic, and mostly actually, I would say the majority of my friends growing up were from Baalei Teshuva families. Or it was a very, very much a community started by a seed kollel. So everybody was Baalei Teshuva or, traditionally Jewish, other than the actual kollel's kids themselves.
How did that feel for you? Growing up with Baalei Teshuva parents, always wonder, does it feel, because I myself, I'm kind of a Baalei Teshuva, whatever, but I wonder with my kids, are they going to feel some incongruity here, at home, and because maybe you're going to have some things left from your previous life, obviously, maybe not, but I wonder, did you have this feeling at home? Like,
So it's funny you ask that. Now, it could be I picked up on, you could say whether it was subconscious or there was anything obvious about it at all, I don't know. But maybe insecurities from my parents about, like, especially being around like unreligious relatives. Um, I just felt very embarrassed to be wearing a kippah. I was like the kid at this like family reunion who had to like dress a certain way, look a certain way. Everybody else was like talking college football and drinking beer and like, here comes like the freak show. Like here comes the family with, I've always, it was interesting. I psychoanalyzing myself, I think from a very young age, I had to be told to put my kippah back on when I'm at a supermarket, and like I just would always kind of try to like not want to look different from everybody else. And so and again, it could have just been a subconscious something that my parents had when they were around their own families, but I think this was very much played a role in like how I felt as a Jew growing up, which was just like run the other way. And I really think that I mean, I guess I could consider myself a Baal Tshuva because I really did return. Like I was not interested until I think the first time I realized when I flip on a light switch on Shabbos, the world doesn't explode. It was like an aha moment. It's like, oh, okay. Like
you were so happy. Yes, it did happen.
Exactly. So, yeah, I don't know. Like, so I just was very not bought in growing up. Very just not, my priorities were anything but, I guess probably what any authority figure told me what to do.
I can totally relate to that. I felt very similar to what you're saying. I can totally relate. I grew up like modern Orthodox, and actually my parents did become also frum in their younger years. Like, and when my father is a Ger, and it also like I felt, I don't know if it had to do with that. It's actually interesting when you're saying it now, it makes me think, had it maybe something to do with that? Because I remember being very ashamed also being Jewish at all, like also not wanting to wear kippah in public, not wanting to know that people to know that I'm Jewish.
For example, for you and with your son, it's going to be different because you're in Sfat.
Baruch Hashem, we're very blessed.
When you're in Atlanta, when you're in Miami,
yeah.
when you're in Antwerp,
you're among non-religious and secular people and non-Jews. Yeah.
Are you still in Atlanta?
I live in Atlanta, yeah.
Do you happen to know, by the way, Jonathan Friedlander?
I grew up with Jonathan.
No way, really? So I met him in already like 10 years ago in a kibbutz.
Really?
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. And he also, because of the music, yeah, and he's a producer.
So it's funny. So when I grew up, like Jonathan, like all of my friends were very into music. Like I have a friend who's like toured the country with a band after high school, and I have other friends who just tried to go professional and try different things. And I was what's funny, it's almost funny to me that I have anything to do with this because I was like the one friend who just had nothing to do with music. And after high school, I was like, all right, I'll pick up a keyboard. Like, it was just a big part of my life. And fast forward today, I actually am doing something with it, which is cool and ironic to me in my mind. But yeah, I think I was always, and maybe this has something to do with what maybe gave me some impetus to actually act upon my motivation with music, is just I've always been around. My friends have always been like very musical and making music and playing music.
God
yeah,
set you up from the start.
Yeah. So, but yeah, Jonathan, I went to, I think since middle school, I was in school with him, middle school through high school.
So how do you go from growing up feeling pressured or uncomfortable to identify as a Jew, but to be outward recognizable as a religious Jew,
all over the internet,
screaming Hashem's warrior, and posting Hasidic quotes on
180 degrees. Phew.
That's right. I think that it's been a journey, and I think that it's just the result of a journey. I mean, a journey that, number one, had me, by the time I left high school, I was not doing anything religious, kosher, whatever. For a while, I had already not been interested in anything. So when I went to a yeshiva, that was what that's what kids out of my modern Orthodox high school. That's what everybody did. You went to a yeshiva after high school. Jerusalem, yeah. You know, near Jake, near Yaakov.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was at
near Jake.
Oh.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I actually was there the last 2 years it was open. So I went through a real kind of like personality metamorphosis, because I think in high school, like I was an athlete. I was a troublemaker, a jokester. And all of a sudden I come to Israel and I'm like, as crazy of a kid I thought I was. Seriously, when you walk into the drawers at Near Jake, it's like, I mean, I'm not like, as crazy as I'm going to try to be, I will never even come close to some of these people here. And so who my identity was was like overnight, like, who am I? Like I really had to start from scratch. Like, who am I and who do I want to be? Do I want to be one of the crazier guys here? Is that like, not necessarily. So it really, I was challenged. I was in an environment of Torah, and I was challenged to find, who I wanted to be in an environment that really, honestly, completely canceled out who I thought I was up until that point. So that was, so it took.
Yeshiva has the ability to pop that bubble,
Yeah, no, it really did.
With a certain demeanor, and it's like, whether it's by what you're learning or the circles that you would rather be around when you're in yeshiva. Who do I want to have lunch with? Who do I want to learn with? It's definitely happened.
Yeah, and so I would say that within my first year, I kind of got back on track with basics, like keeping Shabbos and kosher and stuff like that. But it really took, I think, going back for Shana Bet to really have let's say you could say like a derech that I left with, which frankly was greatly challenged through the years of being, college, starting a career, being in dating and like single, when frankly, I'm not the most, I'm in New York, where there's a lot of cookie cutter type of communities and folks, and of just like kind of trying to stay spiritual, stay positive, stay connected. And I've done like a lot. I did like a lot of like self-help and transformation type of work. I don't know. Are you familiar with like Rabbi Yom Tov Glazer's The Possible You?
Of course.
Have you done it?
I haven't done the course, but I'm very familiar with Rabbi Yom Tov Glazer and all the magic that comes out of his brain.
Okay, so he is very magical. That's for sure.
Yeah.
But before I did do The Possible You when I was about, I think, 25 or 26. In my early 20s, there was something called Landmark Education. It's not a Jewish thing, though. Funny enough, ironically enough, the Jewish community in like Lakewood and like New York seems to be very into it these days. There's like even a WhatsApp group. Back when we're talking like early like 2010, 2011, like there was nobody really doing it, but except some Jews in Atlanta were, and it's very much along the life philosophy, which is very rooted around the philosophies of we create every moment with our thoughts, and that we're like, I'm not living in objective reality, I'm living in my subjective experience of reality. And very much deconstructing how my past and the occurrences that happened in my life shape how I'm viewing life today, and how one can deconstruct that and actually kind of walk into the next moment of life with a blank page. And so very Hasidic space, all of those ideas. And it happens to be, so some of the Jewish community in Atlanta, the rabbi of the Jewish community here was actually a proponent of this work too, which it's very Jewish. It's not Jewish at all, but the guy who founded it, I think his name is like Jack Bernstein, but he has like he goes by Warner Earhart. It's much more marketable, but I guess what I'm getting to is like that was kind of a crux of personal growth that along with like learning here and there, when you're not in yeshiva, you learn as you can. And it's, just was kind of keeping me on a forward trajectory in life. And I kind of hit this crossroads again, despite becoming religious a few years earlier and deciding to, of like, what am I doing here? Like, am I really do I want to be religious? Do I and I kind of really in a way set an ultimatum for myself, and I went cold turkey. I was living in a house. I was living in a bachelor pad. It was just not necessarily conducive to being a from spiritual Jew, where I basically said, I'm going to move into my own apartment. I'm going to like delve into online shiurim, see if they have anything to say about living a spiritual life and relationships and marriage, anything like that. I didn't know any of this. I just know the only inspirational rabbis I knew were at this yeshiva in Israel I went to. I didn't know that much else, that an entire ecosystem existed of just, spirituality. And I got to tell you, folks like Rabbi Yom Tov Glazer, Rabbi David Aaron, Rabbi Kiva Tatz, Rabbi Lawrence Kellerman, man, like they just opened my eyes to a reality that I couldn't really believe existed, because I grew up K through 12, Orthodox education, the fact that these folks are not, part of that education is, I think, a big miss for our youth, honestly. And
You're saying like public schools? You're saying you're
no,
I'm talking about Jewish education.
Oh, you're talking about because I missed maybe some stuff, but you're saying when I left, but you're saying in regular Jewish schools they're not teaching like this Hasidic like philosophy and all this stuff you're talking about.
No.
That the esoterics.
Sure, certainly not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's true. True.
Yeah, again, and not to. I think it comes down to I think our. So are you familiar with Rabbi David Aaron by any chance?
Yeah, I know him since I was a young kid, and I used to, when I was in the old city, I was.
Oh, okay. You're an old city Jew. Got it. I got you.
I was for a while. Yeah.
And for those who don't know,
he's an amazing rabbi that's brings down amazing Kabbalistic concepts in a very, very, very simple to understand way.
He is mamish like. I haven't told him this directly, so I'm good friends with him. But if he spoke like this, he would mamish be a guru. Like if he views himself and tries to come off as like a normal guy. But if he adopted a shtick, the things that he's saying, oh my gosh, like you said, the emes that he brings down, the truth and the clarity he brings down from Kabbalah and Hasidus, wow. But the reason why am I bringing up Rabbi Aaron? What was your last question?
We're talking about like how they don't have this Hasidus in schools, right?
Yeah.
Missing.
So I'm just gonna close this so we don't hear that again. So yeah, I think that just someone like him is, well, when I came across him, like really his book, The Secret Life of God, was really that was really my turning point, where it was like, wow, like yeah, I'm back. Like I'm like really, and I honestly would consider myself a chassid of his. Like his shiurim, his books, and I incidentally, when I decided, I need to just get back to Israel, and I need to just taken one more year now that I've like started a career, done this, like I'm more like developed in my life. I need to have a more mature approach to my learning, etc. And he just happened to be giving a class for aspiring Jewish educators, like a small private class that I was able to attend. So I literally had the privilege to learn under him for an entire year. But back to your question of like, why don't they teach this in schools? Is one thing that Rabbi Aaron says is that, one of the challenges of today's generation, of whether it's atheism or this or that, or just like scoffing at religion, this is not a generation of low spiritual attunement. This is actually this is a generation that has high spiritual demands, and that so much so that they're just not okay with, because God said so. And they're just not okay. I happened to just be listening earlier today to a podcast that he was on, and he said, you want to be completely turned off from God? Open up and read the Bible. You want to start to go towards God? Open a Torah and start to learn. And there's a different, and I think there's a very different perception, and there's different, and that the one thing he also says is like, I don't believe in God, but the one I believe to, I refer to as God. The one I believe in, I refer to as God, because God is just a word that has been dragged through the mud with so many values that are just not aligned with who Avram Avinu introduced the world to, that have nothing to do with it. Now, I know
people nowadays, they think of a man and a stick or something and a long beard.
For sure. Yeah, I used to watch Family Guy when I was a kid. I always thought their portrayal of God was hilarious. He was just, anyway, it's just a guy with long beard and a cloak, white beard and a cloak. But like, yeah, like people they feel like to believe in God would be an insult to their intelligence, because frankly, to believe in what you just said and what is the common understanding of, like some man in the sky. Yeah, like I feel like I'd probably have to have much lower IQ to kind of buy that, and like if I did buy into that, like okay, I mean, what kind of reality would I anyway, I don't know. So
yeah, totally. Also, I found when I would ask people about that subject, like, and I would like dig a bit deeper, especially when I just started doing tshuva. I like to do these type of things, like find out if my friends believed in God or not, and I would find out eventually, like, yeah, they don't believe in that God. But then if you would dig deeper, they would eventually like kind of admit, yeah, I believe there might be a higher being, something else.
I think it really comes down to, and one thing that I'm really motivated and moved by is the idea of kind of living in paradox. And what I mean by that, and it is that what we try to do, we live in a world that's very, what you could say intellectual, academic, and everything is very kind of, I don't know whether they're fitting into certain boxes. If it fits into these boxes and we can quantify it, then it's real and we can believe in it and we can talk about it. But if not, then I think that there's a general overarching societal view that like, you can't talk about things like God if you just can't quantify it. And what I love is what Rabbi Aaron says about, all right, tell me about chocolate. Like, okay, well, I guess it's ground cocoa beans, sugar. Okay, great. Now, like, do you know chocolate now? No. You have to buy it into a chocolate bar. There's the world of the experiential is paradoxical. You can't measure what it is to experience chocolate, just like you can't measure it is to experience God, to experience Hashem.
So deep. It's so deep.
So how do you connect this with metal?
So I happen to think metal is music that I've always been like very into music that just like gets my blood going. So I used to wrestle in high school. So like before I went into a wrestling match, like I had to be like I work myself into a little bit of like a ball of rage before I step out on. But so I was like listening to stuff like Disturbed, and when later in high school I got into bands like I mentioned earlier, like Scandinavian, like melodic death metal. I don't know. Are you guys familiar with metal at all? If I name drop a few bands?
Probably nothing that you listen to.
No, like Children of Bodom or In Flames. All right, fine, whatever.
I used to listen when I was young a lot to Linkin Park and Tokyo Hotel.
Yeah, okay. You posted something. You have something on your Instagram that sounds very much like Linkin Park as well.
It was really cool.
Just recently, a video that you posted.
Yes, yeah, really yeah. So what happens? So to answer your question, so what does all of this have? What does it have to do with metal? Is last Elul, I was feeling really spiritually numb, really, and I was just like, my God, like I just was asking Hashem to, and like really focused on like just like show me the path to get me back, and like God, and like that what's that we say in the morning brachot, he firms our footsteps, like he places the ground under our feet, what is it? Yes, Masadi Gaver, yes. So like I was really connecting to that idea of like, like you are giving me the ground to stand on, like make the ground I stand on lead me in the steps that I take, lead me towards where I want to be. And the lyrics of my first song are exactly that, guide my footsteps from this war, and ultimately, like, from this war, please Hashem, lift me up today. And I was very connected to Tehillim, last Elul, and I was just reading through it, Hebrew and English, and I was just like, man, these are like the original metal lyrics. Oh my gosh, this is so epic.
Right,
Like,
rocking out.
Oh my gosh, she's just
so funny.
like,
You know what's hilarious today? Today someone walked into the store. I work in like a whiskey store, bar, lounge kind of stuff. And this guy walks in and he's like on a group of a whole bunch of middle-aged men touring, and he has a hat that says "Rockin' Rabbi." And now we're doing some rockin' podcast. So it's
there you go.
It's hilarious. Definitely, Rav Shmuel Eliyahu said once, I heard him say that rock metal is like a heavy metal rock is some of the closest music instrument-wise to the music of the Beit HaMikdash.
I like it.
Cymbals and drums.
I had a thought today, which is, when we say, Lam Netzach al Gitis, or we say all these different things on these different instruments, and then we go, blah, 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 blah. We're not following the instructions. First line, play it like this, and then you just keep reading as if nothing is. We're missing something. But so I think that just to kind of continue, I realized, like these words of David HaMelech, I just so epic, and like it really reminded me of like a lot of the metal music that I used to listen to, in that, like, there's an example of like there's this band I used to listen to that like they have this one song that's like about Vikings, or like, and they like call out to Odin, like the Nordic god, and I had actually always thought, like, why is there not like a Jewish version of that? Like that seems pretty right. Like why is there no music? And so like all of these ideas are kind of coming together. And so I had the idea to kind of write a song that was like a personal prayer, that was similar to, like, modeled after Tehillim, where what Tehillim is actually very similar to a lot of the music out there today. What does David HaMelech do? He bemoans the problems of life, but what's different is that he ends with a positive message. And usually a message of stating his emuna. And so that was what my intention was. My intention was to create music that does exactly that and just follows that template. So like you imagine a Linkin Park song, I've become so numb, but but you go from there into
but I still believe in you, Hashem.
Yeah. Hashem, lift me out of this, like, so I mean, that's actually very much what my first song was about. You mentioned it sounded like Linkin Park. So I have this idea of making metal. It was very important to me to have someone not who could just scream, but could do very nice vocals too. And so I actually I looked far and wide until I found this guy before I really started this project, because I didn't want to make music that just sounded like, like, what's the point? Like I want music that people can actually relate to and connect to. So I think I found the guy for it, Baruch Hashem. I think it was big hashgacha that I was able to find him, because I think it's just people. I think the vocals resonate with the words, and I think that the words themselves are that vulnerable, raw words of a Jew who's just wanting to connect to Hashem but doesn't know how. And that's really what my first song is about. Is just like literally is words like wishing I could connect the dots between how wishing I could connect the dots between how I feel and what I do, stuff like that, just lamenting not being plugged in, and so that was my first song, and then my second song, which was called DVEIKUT in the Darkness.
Nice. I like the title.
I mean, it's just, I'll tell you, I was like halfway done with the song when there's an event that happened that was really tragic in my community that I think really spurred me to perhaps just have certain motivation and passion in finishing it and guiding it in a certain style, which was that there was unfortunately a young man in my community in Atlanta who took his own life, and he did so in shul overnight. Actually in the late, it was like I woke up and like there was a WhatsApp group buzzing. Like, I'm gonna turn off my Outlook. Oh my gosh.
Like it wasn't during a service, but it was like at night he came along.
So what happened? Yeah, what happened was he jeez. Okay. He had he went to Ma'ariv. He stayed after Ma'ariv, and he called his Rebbe in Israel to learn. Nobody had any idea. Even his family had no idea he was really going through anything. And he called his rabbi, learned with him. After this whole ordeal went down, and like SWAT was blocking off all the streets around the shul, and there was like a whole situation. Like I don't know if he was wearing tefillin at the time, but he had been wearing tefillin. The Torah was found open. It was read from. Like this kid when his world was crashing down inside, he was like doing anything he could think of. He was doing anything he could think of to like search for light and like.
Wow.
And I was so
got chills.
Yeah, and so like I was so moved by that, and it's like as horrifying as it's almost inspiring too. That like, my God, that's emuna right there. Like that's like, you know what I'm saying? Like this kid's world is mamish like crashing down upon him. He's imploding, and like this is what he's doing in his darkest moments. Is he's putting on tefillin. He's reading from the Torah. Like this is what he's. So my song DVEIKUT in the Darkness is really a song of a person's like internal conversation with like just kind of, I don't want to say like going crazy, but like of just like not being able to like find one's identity and understand who, like, what am I doing? Who am I? And it's kind of a song about that. Whereas the chorus, as crazy as this sounds, is it's kind of like a heavy metal guided meditation where it, the words of the Lord of the chorus are, point towards, take a breath and look inside, close my eyes and confront my fights. In DVEIKUT, I come alive, a spark of God, I am divine. And so it's a song of a person like realizing their divinity and the kedusha of themselves, and within the darkness being able to find that. And I think that
Wow.
Yeah, it's
This relates exactly to, we have this new series that we're doing Baruch Hashem on the book about B'yam Darkecha of Rabbi Shammai Morgenstern, and I'm personally right now going through the book, but the section I read today about happiness and like things that can cause a lack of happiness and keep us from being happy is one of the things that puts us into sadness is a feeling of lack, or a feeling that we messed up, and it tries to keep us in the past. And it says that no matter what, even when we get down to the worst places, we have to remember that we're really a piece of Hashem, and we're divine, and that we are the most elevated creation in the whole entire universe. And you just have to remember that and get back to that. And like,
By the way, where can people find your songs? Because if they're now listening to this and they're aching already to hear the song.
Oh man, it's everywhere. Just look up Hashem's Warrior. It's on Spotify, it's on iTunes, Apple Music, Amazon Music. Like, you Google Hashem's Warrior, it'll be wherever.
Are you on YouTube as well?
That's great. I'm on YouTube. It's on my Facebook page. It's on my Instagram page. Anywhere I have some presence, which is everywhere, you'll find my music.
It's amazing. So, what would be the message for all of Hashem's warriors out there?
Yeah, so I think
from the headquarters in Atlanta, Georgia.
From the headquarters, there you go, from the desk. And even to answer your original question of like, why Jewish metal and what does any of this have to do, I think that we all have a scream inside of us that we wish Hashem could hear, but we wish we could even scream it ourselves. We just can't even find that scream. And then I'm hoping that this music can, in a way, give some sort of a template maybe open up something inside people who do gravitate towards music like this, or because for me, like even in listening to metal, I was never into like the horror or like the, you know, like there's a whole
Negative
genre
side to it.
there's a whole genre within metal that like I just wasn't into. I like the intensity of it, and I think any type of music I listen to, I like a certain intensity, and I think that just people do not need to like heavy metal to like my music. I'm like completely shocked at some of the feedback. Like someone at my show, it was like my turn to bring a bottle to Kiddush Club, and someone sent out a email. By the way, check out, you know, Dovi just released this song, and like some just like older dude at my show was like, that was really nice. I was like, thanks, man. Like, like you listen to metal? No, like I don't listen to it. Like you don't have to listen to heavy metal. Just like I don't think you need to like heavy metal to listen to Linkin Park. Like that really was the idea, was I want to have someone who has really beautiful vocals, who can only scream in a way that like a person would actually scream in life. Like he's not screaming, the screaming in my music isn't for the sake of screaming. Like in the song DVEIKUT in the Darkness, the person after like kind of going nuts about like just not being able to find yourself, he screams out, "No, I'm not this pain inside." And like to be able to, and beneath this storm a flame survives. And I think that this Jewish metal is not just heavy metal, it's music that hopefully can capture the human spirit in a certain way that any person can relate to, and scream about things that we all probably, whether we know it or admit it or not, scream about on the inside deep down here and then. And so that's ultimately the idea of this, is to really just humanize the experience of cleaving to God. DVEIKUT, man, that's what it's all about. And
So beautiful.
It's really awesome. You're elevating heavy metal. Who would have thought a few years ago? Never would have thought that you could
I wouldn't have
elevate
thought
heavy
either, man.
metal or rap, anything.
Have you ever
It's really
seen
cool.
Jewish punk on YouTube? Jewish punk, I think it's Vice that did it. I'm not sure. A few years
So
ago.
I've seen some things. I'll look this up after we get off. But I know that like there have been, like I've connected with a lot of the folks who were in this before. There's a guy who is called like Mashiach Oy or something. He had probably what's closest to like heavy metal before this. I think he's a Breslov guy actually. But yeah, I know there have been little attempts here and there, people dipping their toes in. As far as I know, it could be completely wrong, I don't know that anyone's tried to make heavy metal for the purpose of like making it as a platform to like help people connect with Hashem. Meaning like people have done it like, yeah, it's like a shtick. I'm a frum guy and I make metal. Like I've seen that before, but I don't
You're
know.
doing Kiruv through it.
Yeah.
It's like our podcast.
Yeah.
It's not just
you
a
know,
podcast.
yeah,
It's
you know
the
what
Kiruv.
they actually say about music. It comes from such a lofty place. It's right next to the gate of tshuva.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the secret of Tehillim as
I
well.
think that there's something so David HaMelech, part of like what I'm like the mentality that I'm writing here is that he is our ultimate prayer. If there's like in any Jew in history, like who is our ultimate like example of how to daven to Hashem, it's David HaMelech. In fact, Sefer Tehillim is just prayers, his personal prayers as he goes through life struggles. Like but like you said earlier, there's something about music and there's something in prayer that I think, there's something that just needs to be stirred inside of us a lot of the times that we need to activate. And whether it's through music or just whatever it is, I think that a lot of thought needs to, I think for our children and our children's generation, a lot of thought needs to be put into and like how we're teaching tefillah, because I think that we can revolutionize and like I love the story. I'm sure you're familiar with it. It's a classic Hasidic story. I think it's the shepherd boy, he comes in on Yom Kippur to the Baal Shem Tov shul and he starts whistling because that's the only thing he knows how to do. There's some versions where he says like
Right, yeah, I understand. Yeah.
fucking like a chicken or whatever, where all the Hasidim are like shushing him. And the Baal Shem Tov, he stands up and he stands with the boy and he says this, because of the pure like rawness of his tefillos right now in his own language, like all our tefillos have been accepted this Yom Kippur. And it's
He
like,
means it.
take a second and think about that. Like, you know, it's one thing to go to shul and to daven and to, you know, say everything you need to say and keep up with the chazan. For me, and I'm nobody to speak out against this, but going to shul is the most anxiety-ridden thing. I'm like trying to keep up, catch my breath. This guy's like, that guy's like yelling something else. The chazan's somewhere else. Like, oh my god,
Until you get the
I need a brown paper bag over here. But it just, I don't know. It's just so that's something that I'm just kind of, I think beyond, that's underneath all I'm trying to do here, is that there's just something new that we need to start thinking about when it comes to talking to and connecting with Hashem through tefillah, that I think is different perhaps than what we've ever known it to be. Because I think what we've known it to be is probably very, very different from the way our ancestors did it at the times of the Beis Hamikdash. And, you know, so.
Zat Hashem, may you be successful in all your journeys to bring people back from wherever they might be. Zat Hashem, by way of your platform and your music and your inspirational merchandise as well. That's amazing, by the way. I love that shirt.
Yeah.
I love the hat.
I love the drawing of the guy, and I think it's a telly. So yeah, that's so cool. Oh, that one I haven't seen actually. Wow, that's really cool too. It's really cool art. Who did that art?
You familiar with Fiverr?
Yeah, Fiverr, of course, is really tech.
That's how I do everything.
So cool that you got this amazing.
Nuts with this project is all like Fiverr and gig websites. Yeah.
Wow, that's so cool.
Would you?
Yeah. So you go.
I was gonna say, if I sent you one of my songs, would you play it at the end of this podcast?
Sure.
Of course.
Gladly, yeah.
Sure. And in the beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah, fine. I have two, so you can play one at the beginning, one at the end if you want.
Great.
Okay.
We can play it now and just pretend.
Guitar Hero.
Right now.
Hey, I was good at Guitar Hero.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Maybe we can make some music with him. By the way, just before we wrap this up, you probably have had interesting comments and about your music. And what is the most like stood out to you? You were like, well, yeah, something you want to share maybe?
Besides the old guy from the Kiddush Club.
Yeah, that was a cool one too.
Well, I think that it's whether it's the old guy from Shul saying, "Oh, I liked your song," to, you know, there was like just a client at work who's non-Jewish who I know he's like in a band, and I sent him my song. He's like, "This is awesome." He's not Jewish, like so. It's just, I'm kind of like realizing, you know, as I'm doing this, like what this is able to do, which is just like if you can have a message of emuna and make it sound good, it doesn't really matter who it is. Like this can resonate with anyone. Someone suggested to me, it's like, you need this music would sound great in a video game. Could you imagine? We'll see. I'll find the right person to get my music in video games. Can you imagine if you're playing like Call of Duty and you hear some music about like
DVEIKUT in the dark. Schmeißen! Grenade!
Yeah.
That'd be funny. That'd be hilarious. Is that the show?
And who knows?
Yeah.
I'm planning on making a short film soon. So
yeah.
Maybe we can use some of your music in there. Who knows?
Of course.
We'll see.
Thank you so much, Dovi. It's been a real pleasure to get to know you a little bit more and to see how far, you know, the light of the Baal Shem Tov and all the tzaddikim can go. And I know for sure a few friends here in Israel that were very heavy into metal, some good Chabadnikers, some good
they love it. They love it. It's just, you know, it's awesome when you see people who are just not into metal. Like they just, like I have all across the spectrum, you know, people just, you know, if it's a message of emuna and it sounds good, it doesn't, you know, you don't need to like metal to like
especially
this music,
shir. You know, shir, the word shir comes from the word kesher, a connection.
Yeah. There you go.
A knot, a tie. So the song has the power to connect people beyond the words even. So B'ezrat Hashem, we all be successful. And hopefully, definitely get the songs over we're going to have here at the end. And make sure you follow Jewish Metal on Instagram. Search Hashem's Warrior online.
We'll put some links also in the video.
And I will say, just as just to wrap, come full circle with how I first introduced myself and my, and you could say, embarrassment as a kid with being from. I think that if you go to hashemswarrior.com and you see the merchandise there, whether it's a man in a sword, a flaming sword fighting the Satan, you know, being made out of darkness with a dark sword versus a man standing in the cold in a suit of armor and a talis and tefillin, to just a shirt that itself says Hashem's warrior. I think that, for me, it was a step forward in just like owning, like, this is what I'm here for. It's like, and ultimately, I think for everybody, rebranding that you should never see yourself again as a struggling Jew, even if that's what you do. You're Hashem's warrior.
I was even wondering, the moment I saw your page, I was like, wow, he's very zealous. I wonder if he's a Kohen, descendant of Pinchas or something.
As far as I know, I'm not. But I can tell you, the Dovi Halpern, as far as I know, is maybe one of the most Hasidic names out there.
Yeah, for sure.
For sure. I was thinking Dov. Yeah.
Halpern is a big Chabad family as well.
I've heard of different Chabad. Yes, Chabad, but I've heard of different Chassids. I've heard Halpern in different Chassids.
Is it Dov or Dovber?
Dovber.
Dovber. My son, I also called him Aaron Dovber, actually.
Beautiful.
So, thank you so much for coming on. And
that was.
We're definitely going to be in touch. I have some good ideas, and
beautiful.
We'll be hopefully be able to spread this light even further and further.
It was great to meet you, Dov.
Thanks, guys. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.